I'm very excited to introduce Edward Liu. He has been a New York City educator for over 20 years, and much of those times he has been teaching students that just came over to America. So he has had tremendous success with the population of students we serve at Speak Mentorship. He also has recently wrote a new book called The More We Become, which I had the privilege of writing an endorsement for, and it's in the back cover of the book. So do go and get that copy for yourself. And along with his journey, we will discuss how we can tap into our unlimited potential with Ed. This is a great topic to start our monthly speaker series, especially kicking off 2020, a brand new year and an entirely new decade. So we're glad to have Ed be our first speaker of 2020. So welcome, Mr. Edward Liu.
Thank you so much, Hethel. Happy Chinese New Year, the year of the rat. And I'm really excited to share my story and my journey. And the thing is, everybody's journey, there's lessons to be learned, right? Not everything is all about success. It's a lot of success is how the challenges we go through. And I hope you learn from my journey and my mistakes and my triumphs and my success as well. And so I'm very excited to share my journey and also tapping into our unlimited potential. I could talk about some of the insights that I wrote from my book. And in the journey, you also hear things that are from my book that is related. And so there's a lot of lessons to be learned. I'm really excited to share both the topic of the talk and also how I got to where I am. I'm going to start with the first slide and just start from my early years. I was also, one of the things the reason why is I love teaching ESL students because I was a ESL student myself. I was born in Taiwan. And it's a very interesting story. Like both my families escaped from China in 1949. And, I'll just quickly share their stories. One of my mom's side, they took a boat to escape from China. And I remember my grandmother telling me that they had to deal with pirates trying to rob the boat as they went from China to Taiwan. My family was, on both sides, were trying to escape the communists who had taken over in China in 1949. And I remember my grandmother being very brave and being very nice to the pirates, she told me, because she didn't want the pirates to harm her or my mother and my uncle. And she had, the sad thing was she had left the two oldest in China and took the two youngest, my mom being the youngest. So it was quite a sacrifice because once they got to Taiwan, they weren't going to see my grandmother on my mom's side wasn't going to see her two oldest for the next 40 years. And my father had a similar story, right? Their family left from China to Taiwan and left the oldest in China. And for the longest time, my father was very upset at his oldest brother, because he thought he should have came with the family. And it wasn't until 40 years later when he had a chance to visit, my uncle said that the reason why he stayed was to really protect the family in case, the communists took over Taiwan. So they hugged and there was a lot of tears and, quite extraordinary. They didn't realize they were not going to see each other for 40 years. Give me a second. So that's the story. And then I was born in Taiwan, and I had a really fun experience before I came to America. I wasn't a very good student. They ranked you from like the top student to like in terms of number. And I think if there was 30 students, I was probably in the 20s. Wasn't a great student. Was sort of a class clown. They were very strict. They wore uniforms. I remember having to go to school on Saturdays, and but had a really positive experience in Taiwan. If you on the right, there's a billboard. We used to go watch kung fu movies all the time. I remember having to go watch those movies all the time. My visits to my two grandmothers. The one thing I really miss and that I had was just time spending with my relatives. Because once you guys might have a similar experience. Once you move from your country to America, you sort of leave some of your relatives that were a big part. They were a big part of my experience in Taiwan. So one of the things I missed when we moved to America was having that connection with my relatives. And for a long time, I wouldn't be able to see my relatives until they visited us, or I recently visited them in Taiwan. Growing up, I looked up to my big brother, and I also remember the great food in Taiwan. Right, it's actually I'm going to go check out a new Taiwanese place later on tonight, and I just missed the food and fond memories of my experience when I was younger in Taiwan. So I moved to America when I was 7, and I remember going into my English obviously wasn't as great at the time. I remember going into PS 89, and there was an experience where I don't know. I think it was something the teacher must have misunderstood who I was, because she had a Vietnamese student translate for me, and I would nod my head, but I didn't understand a word he was saying. And so one of my experiences, and this is what I recommend, if you're an ESL student, I went to the library every Saturday, and I would borrow as many books as I can. So if you don't have a library card, I highly recommend that you do that, because you get to borrow books that you want to read and also really improve your English. So my experience was that I quickly improved my English very quickly. And one of the things is that the school in Taiwan is very strict. So even though I wasn't that great of a student in Taiwan, by comparison, when I came to the United States, it was really easy in comparison to the amount of work that I was getting. So I quickly became one of the better students. And one of the things that obviously helped me was reading on my own. I really got into learning about the history of baseball, reading, and then I became a huge Yankee fan because I read about the history of the Yankees. And I read many different things. But the main thing was that I was able to increase my English very quickly by reading on my own and going to that library, if you see on the left, every Saturday. When I was 6th grade, we moved to Dumont. And you have to understand that when I went to Queens, there was a lot of diversity, right? There was people from different cultures, from the Middle East, from Latin America, from Africa. I was used to seeing students from different parts of the world because I was also from another country, right? But when I went to Dumont, it was very shocking because most of the students there were white, and they didn't see a lot of Asians. So the first time I heard the word chink, and I was like, I was really upset because I was like, wow. And even my friends, they used to make fun of myself being Chinese. But, it was, it's what they're used to, right? They're not used to seeing somebody who's Chinese. And so I got made fun of a lot based upon my culture. Going into mostly white school in the suburbs of New Jersey. Now, I went to high school, and I was a pretty good student, right? I think we had 168 students, and I ended up ranking number 8th in my class. I ran cross country just so that I would have something when I apply for college. I was interested, but I had very little luck with girls. I wanted to go out, but at that point, nobody gave you a handbook on how to deal with, getting girls interested in you. So I was very shy. I don't have a picture of me, but I'm sure I look kind of dorky. Okay. I love to play sports. I love to play basketball, but I tried out one time and I got really nervous. I didn't make the team. So those are the positives and the challenges, right? You do well in school, but socially I had some challenges. Now, in high school, I saw a documentary that really, changed my life. It was a story of Jane Elliot and the blue eye and brown eye experiment. It was fascinating because Jane Elliot was a 3rd grade teacher for an all-white school in Wisconsin. And at the time, Martin Luther King Jr., we just celebrated, he just got assassinated. And she was distraught that we are living in a society where we have so many prejudices, right? And she didn't want her white students growing up being prejudiced against people who are different. So what she did was she said, we're going to learn about discrimination, but you're actually going to experience it firsthand. So she said, you know what? We're going to separate you guys into blue-eyed children and brown-eyed children. So for today, the blue eye is going to sit in the front, and the brown eye is going to sit in the back. Blue eyes, the children are more intelligent. They are smarter. They behave better. And in general, they're better students. Okay. And the brown eye has to sit in the back. They have to wear like an armband to identify the brown eye students. They're not as smart. They tend to misbehave. They don't get the privileges of the blue eye. So it was fascinating. They before they were these, they didn't differentiate between brown eye and blue eye. They were really friends with each other. Now, like the blue eye children were making fun of the brown eyes. The brown eye students started to do worse on the tests and quizzes, and they started acting up. And then the teacher would say, "You see, this is what brown eye students do. They act up. They don't know how to behave." And so, what's fascinating is that the blue eye children also gave ideas to the teacher on how to control the brown eyes. And so the very next day they reversed it, and the same thing happened. But this time around, the brown eyes are superior, so they discriminated against the blue eye. The blue eye started to do worse on tests. They started acting up, and the brown eye started to act like they were better. And so it was fascinating. At the end, they talked about how it didn't feel so good to be discriminated, to be in the inferior group. And I was like, wow, you know what? If I can do something down the road where I can teach a lesson similar to that, because these students, they grew up learning not to be prejudiced. I wanted that positive ripple effect, right? Like if you drop a pebble in the pond, you get positive ripples. I understood that if I become a teacher, I can not only make a positive difference in the lives of my students, but they're also going to have a positive impact on the people of their family and the people around them. At the time, I was really awkward. I got really nervous. Anytime we had a class debate, I would be very nervous. So my challenge was, how am I going to teach if I can't even go up in front of the class? And one of the lessons I think that I want to share with you guys is that just because you can't do it, when you can't do something now, doesn't mean that you can't do in the future. And the second thing is that if you have a big enough, you'll find a way to get things done. So I knew I wasn't good at speaking in front of the class, but I love the idea of being a teacher, and that's something that documentary stuck with me, and I really wanted to down the road. And obviously, I became a teacher, and got past that nervousness in front of the class. So then I went to Rutgers. Okay, and at Rutgers, it was the difference was that there was a lot of diversity as opposed to in high school. It was mostly white students. So I really got into exploring what it's like to be Asian and Chinese. So one of the other advice I would give you guys is don't forget like your roots. It's important. I think that America is a great country, and you can learn a lot from living in this country. But don't forget about where you came from. And so college for me was a way to explore what it meant for me to be Asian. And so I joined a lot of Asian organizations, almost too many. I wish I'd go, and thinking back, I wish I had just done a little bit more of other things besides. But that was a big part of reconnecting with my cultural identity, right? The other thing that I had to decide was what was I going to major in. And the thing is, right now, if you're thinking about what is it that you want to study, don't worry about it. Once you get to college, that's really what college is for. College is for you to explore what is it that you want to do in your future. You can have an idea. Like I had an idea I wanted to be a teacher in high school, but I wasn't sure, right? So my father, being an Asian father, he's like, okay, counting would be very practical. You could make a lot of money. He was all about getting into a career where I could make some good money. So he wanted me to look into accounting. I thought about psychology. And then back then I was like, you know what? I don't know if I want to listen to people's problems all day. So, in retrospect, I think I would have been a great psychologist. So, you know what? So what I did was, and then it was teaching, right? So I took an accounting class, and it was the most boring class I'd ever taken. I was like, you know what? I'm good in math, but I don't really want to deal with accounting. So I decided, you know what? Let me give teaching a try, even though I was nervous in front of the audience. Let me major in history because I wasn't that great in terms of my writing, in terms of my grammar. I always got low grades when the teacher graded my grammar. And history I loved, right? So I decided to major in history and decided to go the route of being a teacher. Okay. Now, this is where you're going to hopefully learn about a lot of life lessons. This is more through when I started being a teacher. I didn't teach the first year out of college. It took me a while. For every position in New Jersey, there was like 30 people applying, and I finally was able to land a job in both Demorest and Otapan, New Jersey, Northern Valley Regional High School. And I had a horrible first year. Teaching was tough. They gave me 3 classes to prepare for, 2 different high schools. I must have slept about 4 hours a day during the week. I took a break on Friday night, but Saturday and Sunday I was getting ready. It was a lot of work, and I must have burnt out after 4 months. I couldn't control the class. I lost control of the class after a couple months. And at the end of the year, I thought about quitting. My supervisor has said some people are born to teach, and basically insinuating that I wasn't one of those people, right? So I thought about quitting, but I said, Ed, you have to give yourself another opportunity, right? What else are you going to do? So I got to then teach my second year at Columbus High School in the Bronx. And at first I was like, wow, I got hired very quickly. And I was like, should I be excited or should I be scared, right? You hear stories about the Bronx. But I made a 180-degree turnaround. I want to share with you what made the difference. Partly what made the difference was when I didn't want to have another horrible first year. And I wanted to make sure that I had the classroom management down. So as soon as I taught, and as soon as a student would have did anything disrespectful, I would call home. I would nip it in the bud right away. I would make sure that it wasn't a challenge, and so by nipping it in the bud and calling home, I was able to maintain control of my class. The other thing that I did that was very smart was that I looked at teachers that made a difference. And this is also a lesson for you to learn. If you want to be successful, look at who's already successful and model their actions. Interview them, ask them what they believe in, and start copying what they do. So I looked at the successful teachers, and I said, what's your success? And I started adopting ideas that made them successful. And I also avoided teachers who are very negative, right? We're serving a challenging population, and so a lot of teachers, after a couple of years, they got a little jaded. I avoided them because I knew that if I listened to them, it was going to negatively impact on my view of my students and my ability to reach my students. And then the other thing that I'll share with you, 2 more things that made the difference. One, I started listening to inspirational tapes. And so I was still living in New Jersey at the time, and it would take me 20 minutes to drive to the Bronx. And I would pop in a positive inspirational tape every morning, and I would start the day with already something very positive. And I would use that throughout the day, right? So and these ideas so how you start your day is very, very important. And then the other thing was I had a supervisor, and he taught me that the most important part of the lesson is the beginning of the lesson. And the beginning of the lesson was called a hook. So I would do things. I remember when I was teaching a lesson about Japanese geography, I would get on top of the chair, I would take a stick, dip it into water, and I would say, I am the god Izanagi, and I'm creating Japan. I would dip it in the water and dip like 4 drops, and that became the island of Japan, right? So my students would always not know what to expect. They would get very excited, and that made the difference, right? Because if you teach a better lesson, the students are going to be less likely to be a behavioral issue. So it was a 180-degree turnaround. I became a top teacher. I started a group called the Life Club. I'll talk about that at a later date because I have a lot to cover, so I want to move on. But you'll note that a lot of people's start off with failures and they learn from it. And I certainly learned from my failures as a first year, and was able to turn things around. And you'll find that in my teaching experience that there's a lot of ups and downs. It's not just like I go straight up. It's not just that I'm going to have success the rest of the way. You'll see some bumps along my journey, and that's going to happen. Okay, and that's normal. So after 5 years at Columbus, I decided I needed to grow, and they weren't really paying me that much, and so I decided to go to Yonkers. Supposedly the pay was higher, and I had a really rough experience in Yonkers, because part of it was the principal hired me because I had a good experience in getting students past the Global Regions exam, so he hired me to try to turn it around. And I started doubting whether I was as good as I advertised myself. And that's when your ego gets in the way, right? Your ego is your desire to want to look good rather than do good. And I started focusing on wanting to look good versus rather than just focusing on doing good. And then that created this self-doubt. And then so I started focusing on that, and I think that impacted my teaching. Whereas at Columbus, I was just focusing on how can I better serve the students. And then I finally, in my third year at Yonkers, they put me in a middle school, and it was the worst year of my teaching experience. I lost control of the class in like October, November, the first class, and then by the time the end of the year, I just got beat up a lot, like not physically. All right, but just psychologically and emotionally, I didn't know how to teach the middle school year students. I was in my 9th year of teaching. I should have been like a pro, but it was definitely even worse than my first year. And so I actually ended up having to see a therapist just so that I can process it, because I was beat up every day psychologically, and then I needed to sort of recover emotionally and psychologically. So that really helped. There's going to be times when you need to go see somebody, and I think I recommend it if you ever get to the point in your life where you feel, hey, you need to see somebody. They help you to, they help you to see things and refocus you back into the right direction in your life. So I went from Yonkers being maybe the worst year in Yonkers Middle School to being some of my best years as a teacher, where I rediscovered my passion for teaching. I'll just share very quickly my experience. One of the things that we did when I got to Bronx International, Ellis Preparatory Academy they're part of the international schools in New York City. They serve an all ESL population. In other words, students like yourself who came over from another country. It was 100%. For the most part, 100%, 99% ESL students, right? And my first year, I had the opportunity to organize a trip to China. And I had this student named Ruth, right? And Ruth wanted to go to China, but she was afraid of being in like very small places. So she was afraid of getting to the airplane because the airplane are very, very cramped. She didn't like that. So I worked with her. I used some strategies. I interrupted her pattern, and she got over the fear of going to China, at least on the airplane. So a week into it, she calls me and she says, I need to talk to you. I'm starting to get anxiety, but this time not about the airplane itself, but on about 12 hours on the airplane, right? She says she got freaked out about that, and that was going to prevent her from going on a trip. So what I did was I called her over and I said, we'll work with you on it. And so what I did was just started to talk about the things that she was had positive experience about. Okay, so she started talking about Jesus. She was really religious and she loved Jesus. She loved her little brother, and I started talking about words that she had positive association to: peace, love. So I would take a word like love or Jesus, and I would have her repeat the word love 10 times and think about who she loved. At the end of the 10 times she would say the word love, I said, say 12 hours on the airplane. She would do this with the word love, with little brother, with Jesus, and we would do it for about 15 minutes, 15, 20 minutes. And at the end, I said, how do you feel about 12 and 13 hours on the airplane? And she said, you know what? I thought she said it wasn't going to work. But she said, you know what? I feel much better. So I've done that with students who have test anxieties. And basically every student I work with, they were able to get rid of their test anxiety. And what it is basically associating their positives and thinking about the things that you have challenges with. If you could shift that association, the words are very, very powerful. You can shift how you feel about certain experiences. So Ruth got to go with us on our trip to China, and so she had a life-changing experience. So I was happy that I was able to help her get on the trip. Okay. Now I then went to Ellis Preparatory Academy. Now Ellis was started by the principal that was there my first year at Bronx International, Miss Norma Vega, who actually, they're also participating in Speak Mentorship. So if you're from Ellis, I want to just say hello. I used to teach there for about 6 years. I was also assistant principal there. And one of the things that I did when I got there was help to create a new grading policy. What I noticed was that students were not doing their homework. And part of the reason was their grading policy. Like if they did the homework, it wouldn't matter. It wouldn't affect their grades that much. They had this thing called outcomes. They had outcomes at Bronx International. One of the reasons why is I left Bronx International. And so I created a grading policy where homework mattered. And here's the thing for those of you who are new to this country. It doesn't make sense if you are coming from a country not to do homework. I'm very big on it because if I was to go to the Dominican Republic, where I was supposed to go to like Africa or France where they speak French, and Spanish or French is not my first language, am I going to work less than or more than the people born in that country? Of course I'm going to study more because I got to catch up in that language. My students had to catch up on English. So for them, it was a big detriment if they did not read on their own and do additional work besides what they learned in the class, right? So me and another colleague who's a chemistry teacher, we started the homework club. It was my idea, but he loved the idea. He was also big on homework. And and you may want to start this at your school, okay? We gather about 12 to 15 students, people that we felt were responsible. Not necessarily your best students, but people who could use some leadership experience. And we said, look, you're going to have to do your homework anyways. We need to get your classmates to do more homework. You can stay Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. You don't have to stay every day, but stay one of those 3 days, if not all 3 days, and invite your classmates to show up, right? And we did this, and I would say on average, we would stay sometimes as long as until 7:30, 2-3 hours. And we would get anywhere from 15 to 25 students from the 11th grade. There were 60 students in the 11th grade, and majority of them ultimately ended up utilizing the homework club. And it did wonders. One, it accelerated the English. Two, by the time my students took the U.S. History Regents exam, before they were just passing the exam, I'm not exaggerating, maybe like less than 10 students. When they took my U.S. History exam my first year at Ellis, out of the 50 students who took the U.S. History exam, 39 passed, 21 with 75 or higher, and 6 with 90 or above. And I tell you that to share with you the power of if you actually accelerate your learning, if you actually work to read on your own and do the homework, that to me was the reason why they did so well. The other thing is that if you're wanting to go to college in the United States, you're gonna have to get used to studying on your own for 5-7 hours. Yes, 5 to 7 hours. And the thing is, if you're used to only doing half an hour to an hour worth of homework, in high school. This is why a lot of students struggle in college. If they're not used to doing additional work in high school, and then they have a hard time catching up. Now, remember, in college, you're not going to have to go to school the entire day. You're going to have 1 or 2 classes. So the majority of time is you're going to have to learn on your own and look for other people to help you. So one of the positives, not only did the students do better on the reasons exams, which they needed to graduate, not only did they accelerate their English, but they also develop what I call stamina in order to be able to not to quit when they get to college, right? 4 or 5 years later, a lot of the students from the homework club were able to graduate. Quite a significant accomplishment, considering that only 30% of Americans graduate undergrad within 4 years. And if you're in the lower socioeconomic status, in other words, if your family is the working middle class or working poor, you stand to be about a 10% chance of graduating college in 4 years. Now, it's higher if you go 5, 6 years. But my students in 4 years, many of those in the homework club, I would say 16, 17 students graduated from 4-year colleges. And I contributed that to the homework club and in pushing them to celebrate English when they were at Ellis. And some of them are back working for Ellis at this point. Okay? I'm going to go ahead because we have a lot to cover. I'm going to spend a little less on my school leader experience. I was basically a teacher and an assistant principal for 4 years at Ellis. And then I got my first opportunity to become principal at Bronx Compass High School in the Stevenson campus in the Bronx. And it was very brief, okay? The superintendent decided to go in a different direction. There's a lot of politics when you get up to that level. And honestly, I was expecting I was to be a successful goal, and it was very short, 4 or 5 months. But one of the things that you learn is that when one door closes, another door opens. I had a chance to write my first book, my first draft of the book, The More We Become, in 2010, when I took a half-year sabbatical. But I didn't get to publish it until after, my principalship, where I wasn't, when I was removed as principal. And so the silver lining was I got to publish my book, because along that time, because I was so dedicated as a teacher, I didn't find the time to publish it. But what that experience told me was that I needed to publish my book, and I needed to find other ways to make a difference. I give up. Eventually, I want to go back to being a principal, have my own school. But for now, that door closed. But now, because of that, I'm able to, publish my book and share the stories from my book. So I'm really excited. I'm going to briefly, currently, I'm an assistant principal for high school for violin and dance, and actually, the 3rd floor. And, I don't want to bore you with the things that I do now, but essentially I support seniors trying to graduate. I support the principal, whatever he needs me to do. I support the social studies department, being a former social studies teacher. I teach a class. I run student government. So there's a lot of opportunities still for me to make a difference. So I'm grateful for having work at what I'm doing right now. So this is my book, The More We Become, and here's a copy. And had to also got to write an endorsement in the back. This is my friend Benny. He's also a teacher. And so this is during my book launch. I want to share with you quickly my vision. And the reason why I want to share with you my vision is I want you to start thinking about like your future dreams and goals. And because it's going to be very hard for you to do the things that you want to do if you don't have a bigger picture of why. So I want to share quickly what I anticipate as the vision for my book. And I said, even though I was very disappointed in not, being able to continue as principal, this is I'm I believe I'm due for bigger and better things. So the reason why, the purpose of the book, and what I see, is to help countless individuals go from suffering to empowerment. As an educator, I serve my students, and that was part of the goal. But with this book, I know there's a lot of people that have challenges, and I want to turn their challenges as a way to make them better. Okay, so that's sort of the purpose of the book. I see myself as an inspirational speaker. I see myself going into different countries and different states, promoting my message of the more we become. And the idea of the more we become is that the better we are, the better we're able to help the people around us. So I believe that could be a very powerful message. Right now, seeking to be a life coach, and again, helping people go from suffering to empowerment is the job of the life coach. One of the things that I believe in is giving back, and I believe that ultimately at least 50% of the money that I make from the book, organizations such as CARE. CARE is awesome because they're not only an international organization that help to fight hunger and poverty, but they focus on also very consistent with Speak Mentorship, empowering girls of third world countries, right? Because in a lot of those countries in Africa and Latin America, in the Middle East and Asia, girls are, and maybe it's true in your culture as well, are treated like second-class citizens, right? So if you empower a girl, not only do you help them, but because girls make up 50% of the population, if we empower girls, we're also helping their local economy, right? So I'm passionate about that. And, this is what also Speak Mentorship does, right? If you're empowered as a female student from another country coming to the United States, you also, serve America and your community more, all right? So I'm very excited that down the road that I can empower and donate money to CARE, but also be part of an organization that helps girls in developing countries. Finally, I want to share with you my vision of a school that I want to create, and it's called the Give Academy. And the Give stands for Growth, Inspiration, Vision, and Excellence. And what can we give to the world? And essentially, the book is I'm going to wrap up because I got to get to my talk. Basically, I want to create a school where we're teaching students that when they come in, the reason why you want to educate yourself is that you want to increase your ability to give to your community and the world. So some of the elements of the school are mindfulness education, that when you come in, you do meditation, you do yoga to start the day. So you start the day on a positive. I'll have a sister school in China where my students can learn from students across the world. And finally, my students will have opportunities to give to their communities, make the school better. Because I believe that if students know why they're in school, they'll be more motivated to learn. That the purpose of learning and education is so they better themselves, so that they can make a difference in the world. Okay, so I'm excited that down the road, I'm going to create the Give Academy. Okay, so I want to talk about the talk for today. I hope you learned a lot from my journey, but I want to share with you tapping to our unlimited potential. What that means is unlimited means that it keeps going. Your potential is like the resources we have within and outside of ourselves that we could use to make our lives better and the lives of other people better. So the reason why I shared my vision for the book is that I want you to think about your why. Why is it? And then when I ask some of my students, what is it that you want to do in life? A lot of them, they don't know. So if you don't know, it's okay, right? You have a lot of time to figure that out. But I would say that that's very important, right? You need to figure out what your purpose is. If you can live your life the way you imagine it, what would it look like? And start to even create, a poster board. Like the slides I shared with you, I have it on a PowerPoint. That was only some of the slides that I share, and I look at it like almost every day, so that I'm very clear about what my future is and what is my purpose in life. Because if you have a why, then you'll have a reason to tap into and wanting to tap into your unlimited potential. In my book, I said, the greatest authentic prestige and honor and privilege we can bestow upon ourselves is to develop and use our ability to elevate those around us. What that means is, like, you're ultimately going to be fulfilled if you develop the ability to inspire others. So I'm hoping that that's part of why you are, why you came to America, why you are educating yourself, and why education matters to you, so that you can ultimately find a way to elevate others. So, very quickly, here's my mission statement. And a vision is basically how you see your life going to be like what do you envision having in your life? But a mission statement is how you want to conduct yourself on a daily basis, right? So my mission statement, very quickly, is to inspire and empower others to draw out their immense potential so they will be better able to give themselves and those around them. Live fully, appreciate life's moments and experiences, and be God's instruments of peace and love. So to those of you who believe in God, I want to do things. You help have, God use me as his instrument of peace and love. I do God's work through me, and bring significant values to you, to others around me, and cultivate this a relationship with God and extend ourselves where the people believe that we're connected. And I'm constantly looking for ways to strengthen my ability to do the above. So you may want to create your own mission statement, because it goes back to the importance of developing your why. So very quickly, because I know we want to get to some questions and answers, I'm going to go over 5 advice on how to tap into your unlimited potential. 1, you got to start with your strengths and assets, right? A lot of times we forget. We focus on the things that we lack, but we forget about our strengths. And your strengths could be that you speak multiple languages, that you bring a lot coming from whatever country you came from to this country. Your strength could be that you live now in this country where you have unlimited potential, right? Unlimited opportunities. What are your past achievements? You might be good with computers. Excuse me. What are the relationships you have that you could tap into? Who are the friends that you can learn from? List all those achievements and utilize that. You want to start with your strengths, because you're going to use your strength to learn the things that you may not be as strong in. Okay? So that's advice number 1. Advice number 2 is go within. You're inundated with a lot of noises. There's a lot of social media, more so than when I was in high school. So part of the noise is that it gets confusing, right? So you want to sort of go within, because there's a lot of power within you. Now, I started practicing meditation when I started writing the book. So I've been practicing meditation for a very long time. And this may not be for you, but meditation, what it does is when you go into silence, there's no judgments. There's no anxiety. There's no conflict, because when you have your thoughts, it's filled with doubts and insecurities and judgments. When you go into silence, the power of silence is that there's clarity. And when you're trying to tap in and being creative and tap into your ultimate resource, the silence is where the power is. So I recommend looking into meditation. But if that scares you, because some people have a hard time sitting still, and even when I meditate, thoughts definitely pop up. So if you start meditating and that happens, understand that that's natural. And you may want to start with just 5 minutes a day. But later on, I should have a chapter in my book about meditation. So if you're interested, you can look in my book for that. But even if you don't meditate, find time to go into nature. Because in nature, it cultivates silence, right? You can just observe the beauty around you. And you'll tap into that resource, because here's the thing. Your outer world is a reflection of your inner world. Whatever's going on in your head and within you, you'll experience on the outside. Always, as a teacher, they said, like, your mood determines the temperature in the classroom. So if I was calm and confident within, I'll have a better lesson than if I was not having a good day inwardly, where I was struggling with something. So a part of you tapping into your unlimited potential is able to go into that place of silence and peace where you could just reflect. Practice mindfulness. What mindfulness is just staying present. Okay? So you pick something you enjoy. It could be yoga, shooting a basketball. I would say watching TV because it numbs your mind. Looking going on social media, I would say do something that you enjoy, where you're not thinking about, you're staying the present, you're not thinking about the past, you're thinking about the future. You're just focusing on enjoying the present moment, because that's the only thing that really exists if you think about it. All the suffering comes when you're thinking about the past, when you're thinking about the anxiety of the future. But the only thing that exists, why they call the present, is that's the only thing. If you focus on that, you can enjoy the experience. Don't let the past or the future taint your present moment. So I encourage you to practice mindfulness. Don't mind me, that's my dog in the background. Make time. If you don't remember anything from this advice, make time for reflection. Sit down from time to time. Because if you don't reflect, life is like a river. It's going to carry you to whatever direction it wants to, unless you sit down and start thinking about what direction you do want to go to. It's like you're on a boat and you have an oar to steer you in the right direction. When you do sit down for reflection, don't just think about the things that are not working. Think about, remind yourself what's going on well. Think about your strengths and think about the things that you've done well, because we can't forget that, right? That's the reason why I have you write your assets, the first thing. And then think about what is it that you want and what action you want to take. Very powerful way to redirect your life is by, from time to time, sitting down and just writing down. I would recommend getting a journal. Okay? Advice number 3. As you go within, which is unlimited, right? Because you access a part of you that's connected to a higher source. You also have access to the people around you, what I call our extended selves. You can learn so much from other people's strengths and experience, right? Think about who you admire. Who is getting the results you want? And just like what I did as a teacher, pick their brains. Spend time with people you admire. You become the 5 to 10 people you spend your time with. So if you're spending time with people that you don't want to become, find other people you want to spend time with. Not that you stop associating with, but you want to look for people that are aligned with what is it that you want. Read good books. There's always inspirational stories that could change how you view things. Pursue profound knowledge. Always look for ways and ideas to make yourself better and increase your capacity to make a difference with other people. So one of the things I always tell my students is this. Once you learn something, you're already creating the limitations and the box for what you believe the world, in your picture of the world. Leave a little space for doubt, because we never have everything. We never have all the information, all the knowledge. So that's why the way out of that is constantly looking for ideas. Because if new ideas come, new experiences come, you should be able to be open enough to adapt the way you see the world. There is flexibility where we're not attached to an idea, and we're always looking for ways to better ourselves. And we can do that by tapping into all the unlimited source that we have that's around us. Not only within, we have unlimited capacity to create, and outside of ourselves, we have unlimited resources to tap into. And I'm almost done, all right? Constantly seek to grow. Again, start with your strength and use your strength to build on others. When you grow, what will happen is you'll experience life at the next level. Just writing this book yesterday, I got to talk to the state senator. The day before, I talked to the vice president of Monroe College. We're going to talk about doing some workshops there. Being able to speak with you. I wouldn't have had the opportunity had I not forced myself and made sure that I published this book, right? So when you grow, you gain new experiences, right? Again, my message again is increase your capacity, grow so that you can increase your capacity to serve and positively impact others. Now, the thing about growth is that at times it's going to be uncomfortable, all right? You're going to have things come along that you don't want, like my experience, my first year teaching, my 9th year of experience teaching, my removal as principal. Those things were things I didn't want, but it made me, if I can use it properly, stronger. So when problems happen in your life, it's an opportunity. Think of it, don't think of it as, oh man, I can't believe I'm dealing with this problem. Figure a way to make it work for you and make you stronger, right? This is one of my favorite quotes by Napoleon Hill. He wrote the book How to Think and Grow Rich. He says, with every adversity, there's a seed of an equivalent and greater benefit. That means with every challenge and problems you have in your life, it starts to seed for a potential to have even a better experience. So that's what I'm hoping that what that setback with the principalship would do, is that it created a seed for me to actually promote my book, and I've already experienced greater and better things. And finally, the way you're going to tap into your unlimited potential is to seek to help others. Tony Robbins talks about we have 6 human needs: the need for certainty, variety, significance, connection, growth, and contribution. The best way to meet all those 6 needs is to help others. Because when we help others, we're not just, the Buddha talked about life is suffering. Life is suffering because we have desire, but desire is not the problem. Desire is not getting what we want. When we're serving others, we're not thinking about whether it's fulfilling our needs, but ironically, it's fulfilling our needs for certainty, for variety, for significance, for connection, for growth and contribution. And it gives you a reason to tap into your unlimited potential, because we often do more for others than for ourselves. Understand that we're also connected to the people around us, right? There's a saying by Native American, there's no branch on a tree stupid enough to fight itself, because you realize you're part of the tree. So when you're serving others, you're serving yourself. So I'm going to end with, before we do the Q&A, we're going to end with the quote from the end of my book. It speaks to the connection we're talking about. Nothing in nature lives for itself. Rivers don't drink their own water. Trees don't eat their own fruit. Sun doesn't give heat for itself. Flowers don't spread fragrance for themselves. Living for others is the real nature, and there lies the secret of life. All right, so I hope that it has inspired you to think about tapping into your unlimited potential so that you could make a greater difference with the people around you. So at this point, if there's any questions and answers, that would be great. I know we're running out of time. Sorry, it took a little bit longer than I wanted to.
That's okay. Sometimes it's more about the story than even the questions and answers, because people will can always follow up. And so I will actually go to that slide for the sake of time, just to make sure that people can contact you when we have enough time for that. So again, if you do want to contact Ed, it's info@themorewebecome.com, and I do encourage you to visit the website as well. You talked a lot about this in your journey, and I know that you have 2 more slides that I do want to make sure that you can get to. So for the sake of time, I'll just ask this one question. It seems that a lot of what's happened in your life has been this kind of idea of new beginning or starting over. And from the starting over since your childhood and having to come to this country and having to pick up a new language and trying to figure out whether teaching was right for you, and everything that's happened since, and taking all of the kind of the meandering pathways to now the more we become, and then the future school that you're working to develop. I think all of that speaks to the importance of starting over, which again, many of our viewers can resonate with. So do you want to speak briefly about that? And also, if it does tie into your next slide, then go ahead and just continue on from the next slide.
Yeah, I think that much like a book, you have different chapters in your life, right? And you're going to have, it's inevitable that you're going to have challenges and success, right? as you see in my journey. So the question then is when you have a challenge that arises, are you going to shrink, or are you going to utilize that as an opportunity to make yourself better? And so my call to your students, those listening, is that you want to do the latter, right? You want to utilize whatever challenges as a way to make yourself better. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger is not just a catchy song title. It's a truth in life, right? There's always lessons to be learned, and those things are good, but because without those challenges, we would be much stronger. We would be much weaker, and we would experience less of life. We would appreciate less of the good things and our successes, because we have those challenges. When we do have success, we have a greater degree of satisfaction. And so I know coming to a new country a lot of times is challenging, trying to learn a new language, but by getting past the struggles, like my students at Ellis and Bronx did, they now have greater opportunities. And there's no country probably better than the United States in utilizing our challenges and having those opportunities out there to take advantage of. There's a lot of opportunities to make a difference with not only yourself but your family, right? Because your family came here for you to have a better future, so that you could have a greater future. But a brighter future is not just making sure that you become rich and wealthy, but it's also making sure that you're having an impact, because the country is servicing you in terms of giving you opportunities. So in a way, part of the Speaks mentorship is how can you give back to the country that's helping you have a future.
Exactly. And with 2 minutes left, I want to make sure you get to the important topics in your next slide, the key takeaways, and then kind of just wrapping up with how successful people always are able to redefine, reimagine themselves. And I think in your journey, you've showcased that as well. So I think with the final takeaways, take it away, Ed.
Okay, great. So I'm just going to quickly share with you, potentially think about next steps. I think, start with your why, start thinking about it. It can always change as you gain new experiences, create your own mission statement, have fun with it, get a vision board, get a bunch of magazines, just start cutting out pictures and create a vision board of what it is that you want. And because if you know where you're headed, then you know why it is that you come into school every single day and what you do. I would look into meditation. That's something that's becoming very popular. It's a way to keep peace within. Go get a copy of my book. I think there's other topics. I'm going to briefly talk about some of the topics you're going to read in my book. I don't mind promoting it. It feels like self-promotion, but because I feel there's a lot of value. So I know that, like if you get it, if you got significant value from this talk, I think you'll get a lot of value from my book. Aside from that, the book does is it seeks to inspire to help others, right? So you don't have to read the book in order to start doing that right now. You could find ways to help others. Visit a nursing home. There's always an old lady or gentleman that could use some company, right? The best way to help your English is to tutor somebody else who just came to this country. So if you've been in this country a couple of years, mentor somebody who just came to this country. Maybe you sit down with your classmate and just say, hey, what are some ways we can improve our school? Talk to the principal, talk with a teacher, and propose those ideas. Empower yourself and start to actually make a difference, right? Come up with your own ideas on how to make your school better and your community better. Look into donating to CARE. I love the CARE, or another charity organization you wanted to donate to. So quickly, I want to wrap up. So if you get my book, these are some of the things that you'll learn. How can you understand the ego and how to improve your relationship? I talked a little bit about the ego in this talk. I didn't talk a lot about it, but it's definitely a big part of my journey. How do you expand your happiness? We have a responsibility to be happy, because the happier we are, the more productive we are. The happier other people are, because when we're unhappy, we also spread our unhappiness. How do you attract and get the things you want? I talk about how the law of attraction works. If if you're intrigued by meditation, definitely get my book. And also, how can you build your wealth if you're interested in increasing your wealth, increasing your ability to give to others? Okay, and that's basically it. You can go to www.themorewebecome and order a copy of my book. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I hope you learned something, gained some insights from my talk, and I hope this inspires you to help yourself so you can help those around you.
Thank you again. And yes, donate to the charity of your choice, but also please consider donating to Speak Mentorship so that we can put up more talks like this and we can continue working with more students to make sure that they can define their journey and make sure that they're achieving success, just as Ed has throughout everything that he's done. And again, please go and get the book and visit the website www.themorewebecome.com. Thanks once more and happy Chinese New Year to you.
Happy Chinese New Year.